Thank you very, very much, Ben. And welcome to everybody who's on this webinar. Much appreciated that you've devoted an hour of your time, or hopefully up to an hour of your time for this webinar. My name is Michael Gasiorek. I'm Professor of Economics at the University of Sussex. I'm an international trade specialist, and I'm also Director of the Centre for Inclusive Trade Policy. What we want to do this morning, well, I say this morning, for some of you it might be the afternoon, it might be the evening, depending on where you are. What we want to do in this session is to introduce you to our International Trade Policy Diploma, which we're very, very excited by. So there's going to be three of us speaking and talking to you about aspects of the diploma and so on. It's going to be myself, my colleague Pinar, and one of the participants on the course, Alex. So what I will do now is I will ask Pinar and Alex to briefly introduce themselves. Then I will talk to you a little bit about the background to the diploma and then a little bit about the actual diploma itself. Then I will hand over to Pinar and she will then hand over to Alex, and then we will open up for Q&A. So if I could just ask Pinar briefly to introduce herself, and then Alex.
Hello, everybody. I'm Pinar Gunes. Thanks, Michael, for the introduction, and thanks, everybody, for joining us today. So my name is Pinar Gunes, and I'm an assistant professor at the business school at the University of Sussex. And I'm the course convener for this diploma and one of the modules conveners. I'm an economist, and my specialization is international trade policy. And I'm also a researcher at the Center for Inclusive Trade Policy. Yeah, I can hand over to Alex for a brief introduction.
Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Alex Mulcrone. As Michael mentioned, I am one of the participants on the inaugural cohort of this diploma. I work within the UK government at the Department for Business and Trade as part of the Trade Negotiations Unit. And I'm going to be here today to tell you a little bit about the course from the perspective of a student and what you can expect should you choose to make the commitment. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Next slide, please, Pinar. I just wanted to say, Pinar, there's a thing up on the screen which says you're sharing your screen. Can you minimize that? And go back to the preceding slide. Perfect, thank you. I mentioned earlier that I'm director of the Centre for Inclusive Trade Policy, so let me just say a little bit about that. The CITP is a UK research centre which is essentially dedicated to evidence-based research and policy advice around the theme of inclusivity, broadly around the theme of inclusivity. We were founded in 2022, but very much building on the preceding work and success of another centre here at the University of Sussex, the UK Trade Policy Observatory, which was established immediately after the UK referendum to leave the EU. We're a UK-wide partnership led by the University of Sussex with partners across all the 4 UK nations, but also with partners around the world, including in Europe and America and elsewhere. So we're not focused just on UK research, we're focused very much on policy relevant research on international trade. Next slide, please. So, no, back. Thank you. International trade is very much at a turning point. If you think back, to the extent that you follow this, think back to the news of the last week or 2 weeks. We've had the summit between President Trump and President Xi. We've had India sign a free trade agreement with New Zealand. We've got the Strait of Hormuz crisis. We've got the EU levying what are called anti-dumping duties on China. If you look at the newspapers on an almost daily basis, there is something about trade in there. Trade touches on all of us on a daily basis as consumers, what we eat, what we buy, what we wear. In the UK, for example, the government has just announced it's going to lower tariffs on foodstuffs in order to deal with cost of living issues and so on, supposedly. It impacts on us as workers. Pretty much everybody is in some sense working for a firm that engages in trade, even if the firm doesn't know it engages in trade. It's very hard to think of a single product that is produced without the producer of that product buying an intermediate input in order to make that product, or because many firms are dependent on export markets for their sales. So it impacts on all of us as consumers, as workers, impacts on almost every business, and therefore it impacts also on government and government policy. Trade policy making, however, is unusual as a trade policy instrument. Most instruments of policy that governments have are entirely domestic: education policy, transport policy, whatever. Trade policy has a clear domestic element. You can just decide what you want to do, but it also has large aspects of trade policy that require agreement with, negotiation with other countries, and therefore all countries sign up to various forms of international agreements, some of which are legally binding, some of which are not. But that means that thinking about trade policy is not just about the economics, I'm an economist, but also about the legal aspects, the legal underpinnings, the domestic and international legal basis for trade policy. The Centre for Inclusive Trade Policy is very much an interdisciplinary centre. So we have economists, we have lawyers, we have political economists and so on, international relations academics. So it's very interdisciplinary. Trade has also become much more complex, and this is the point of this slide, saying that international trade is at a turning point. Think of events such as COVID or Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Think of concerns about climate change, environmental sustainability. Think about the changes in technology, the progress that's taking place, the fourth industrial revolution, digitalization and AI. And think about the policy actions of other countries, the US, the EU, and so on. There is so much more that is going on that trade policy has become much more complicated. Yet there's very little training in international trade. So we thought it was incredibly important to put on a diploma in international trade that gave people a really thorough, advanced level of knowledge in this range of issues. Next slide, please. So we have this diploma in international trade policy, which launched last September. The diploma is composed of 4 modules, and you can see the modules up on the screen. Trade policy in a challenging world, trade and sustainability, trade for all, trade and technological change. I'll say a little bit more about each of those in a moment, and then I'll hand over to Pinar. The aim of each of those modules is to give the participants a really important critical understanding of trade policy, to go through the conceptual and analytical tools to understand what is happening in trade and how policymakers and the business community are engaging with trade, and the skills to work with data and evidence to inform trade policy. I should say that although they're numbered modules 1, 2, 3, 4, you can take the modules in any order. Each module is designed to be self-standing. I guess if I was really pushed hard, I'd probably say that module 1 is the best module to start with, but you can take the modules in any order. Next slide. The teaching team for this module comprises leading academics from the University of Sussex Business and Law Schools. As I said before, we have a large interdisciplinary team. Indeed, I think at Sussex, we certainly have the biggest team of trade specialists, academics, researchers in the UK, and almost certainly in the EU, if not in the world. So you'll be taught by leading academics. For each module, we also invite some guest speakers drawn from either industry, from the wider trade policy community, or from academia to interact with the course participants. So you may have, for example, an hour session with somebody from the business community who will talk to you a little bit about their work in trade, why they think trade is important, and then it's an opportunity for the participants to engage with that speaker, to ask questions, and so on. Next slide. So I'm going to go through each of the 4 modules very, very briefly. I'm not going to go to it in great detail, but let's give you a flavour of what we're doing in each of the modules. So module 1 is trade policy in a challenging world, and you can see from the list of topics in that graphic, in that image, essentially this module provides a comprehensive foundation in how global trade actually operates today. Why do countries trade? How do countries trade? What are the barriers to trade? And it covers both the legal aspects and the economic aspects of trade. Next slide, please. The second module is called Trade and Sustainability, and here we're really interested in understanding the intersection of trade policy with issues of environmental sustainability, climate change, and the transition to a greener economy. The challenges to the environment, climate change, are one of the biggest challenges I think facing society, and trade interacts with that in all sorts of ways, both positive and negative, and it's really important to understand those elements. Next slide, please. The third slide really picks up on the idea that while it's really easy for us to argue and to show that international trade is generally good for an economy, it leads to higher rates of economic growth, it increases living standards, it increases economic growth and so on. It doesn't mean that everybody benefits. As you open up to trade, some people might lose their jobs, some firms might go out of business, some regions may. There are winners and losers from trade. And it's really important to understand who benefits from trade, who loses from trade, how policy can be made more inclusive, and to think about those distributional impacts, both within a country, thinking of firms, regions and communities, but also across countries, which are the countries that perhaps might be benefiting more or less from trade. So that's more or less what the main topic areas that are covered in Trade for All. And then next slide, please. The final module picks up on what I said earlier, which is we really are going through a period of incredibly rapid technological change. So in trade and technological change, we address how innovation, digitalization, those emerging technologies are reshaping both what we trade, how we trade, but also how we govern international trade. Things like data flows, privacy concerns, cybersecurity. These are all really important, how we agree upon this between countries and so on. So those are essentially the 4 modules. Next slide, please. So why we think this course is important, why we encourage people to join this course is, obviously you need to be interested. You will see that I'm passionate about international trade, and I think international trade is so important to our lives, as I have said earlier, and I think it's become really, really very interesting. For many, many years, trade was there in the background, it took place, everybody kind of understood it was important, and it was governed by a rules-based system. Last 5-10 years, trade has become much more to the forefront, and that rules-based system is being challenged increasingly. So if this interests you, if it matters to you professionally in terms of your work, if it will help you to understand what is going on, then join this course. There are 4 comprehensive modules, an expert teaching team, practical skills, and I think is very, very timely and relevant. On that note, let me hand over to Pinar, who'll take you through some remaining slides, show you some of the course material, the style of course material that we use, and then we'll hand over to Alex. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael. Hello, everybody again. As Michael mentioned, I'll briefly talk about the course structure. So, as Michael said, we have 4 modules, and per each module, we have 9 weekly topics. But each module is comprised of 11 weeks. So we will start with the first topic, and then we release each topic per week. And at the end of the topic 4, which corresponds to week 4, we have a reading week. That will be week 5. And then again, we have the topics, and then the module ends on week 11, where we will have the assessment. So week 11 would be dedicated to completing the module assessment. So we release all the materials using a platform called Canvas, and you will be reaching all the materials, the reading lists, and the Zoom links for the seminars through Canvas. So each module or each topic is comprised of 2 elements, the synchronous content and asynchronous content, or in other words, asynchronous content would be the independent study. So we release each topic's reading material on the Friday before that week begins. This is for you to have time before so that you can prepare. As I said, you can access the materials through Canvas at any point after they are released during the week and revisit them throughout the module whenever you want. Moreover, we have some quizzes. One of them is called Check What You Think quiz. That would be a brief introductory quiz at the start of each topic, just to encourage the participants to think about the topic before they see the reading material. And then we have the interactive lecture content, which I'll show you a sample in a minute. And each interactive lecture content in general has 5 sections per topic, including short videos or interactive materials, as well as embedded quizzes. And third, we have Check What You Learn quiz. That's a formative quiz at the end of each topic to consolidate your understanding regarding weekly topics. Now let me share let me show you a sample of our reading material. Can you see the RISE material? I can't see.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I can't see the screen, so thank you. So this is a sample from our first module, Trade Policy in a Challenging World. This is some sample slides from our interactive reading material. So we have such descriptive or introductory slides where we talk about international trade, for example, and we have graphs. And these graphs are mostly interactive. For example, you can click on the plus signs and you can see and read the descriptions. And we have such flip cards where you can click on and read the descriptions like this. And then we have, as I said, interactive quizzes. They are not graded. And you can, for example, I click and submit. So it's incorrect, and I say take again, and then you can retake the quiz. And we have again such flip cards like this, and we have this week on mini-deals, for example, and we have these tabs where you can click on to see and read more about the descriptions like this. Or we have such tabs where you can click and go through the material and read more. And for the second module, Trade and Sustainability, again, we have the reading material from the slides. And for example, we have such graphs, like such timelines. And we use, again, graphs. And we have, again, such flip cards for interactive materials, and I continue, and we have, for example, we start and you can zoom in and zoom out, and you can continue. Again, you can zoom in and zoom out if you wanted to see the graph. And we have such matching quizzes where you could match and see whether it's correct, as I said, and then you simply submit and then apparently it's incorrect, and then you can click on take again. So we have such interactive reading materials. It's not only you go to the material and read. So we have interactive quizzes, as I said, graphs where you can click on interactive graphs and tabs. And if I go back to my slides, yeah, as I said, each module or for each topic, we have the asynchronous content or learning alone. And we have also learning in real time, which corresponds to synchronous or live sessions. So on Mondays and Tuesdays, as we will have 2 modules this semester, we have a 1-hour session where we either invite a guest speaker or else this is a student-led discussion, which means that the tutor, the module convener, is not present. So it's only for the students where the students can engage in discussions with themselves without the tutor being present. And on Wednesdays and Thursdays, so we say Wednesday or Thursdays, for example, for module 1 Wednesdays and for module 2 Thursdays. So for each module, there's only 1 guest speaker session and 1 weekly seminar. And these weekly seminars on Wednesdays or Thursdays are led by the module tutor for deeper engagement with the material. So if you have questions regarding the material, the reading lists, or if you wanted to discuss a certain topic regarding that week's material, you can engage in discussions with the module tutor in the live sessions, and these sessions are recorded, and also guest speaker sessions are recorded in general. Of course, it is due to we ask the guest speakers approval for this, but so far they have all agreed. So these are both recorded sessions unless the guest speaker wants the otherwise. So all live sessions are in UK time, and again on Canvas the full schedule are published and the Zoom links are there on Canvas. And lastly, I want to talk about the assessment. So each module is assessed through 3 components. All are pass or fail, and you receive substantive written feedback from the course tutors. So first, we have project briefs where you set the foundation for your assessed work, and then we have a policy note where you write a concise piece which where you are applying your learning to a real-world policy context. For this policy note and outline project briefs, you can choose something related to your work. Of course, that would be, again, should be related to the module's content, but you are free to choose whatever interests you or what you would like to work on. And first, you outline these project briefs, and then after agreeing with the module tutor, you write a policy note, and after you hand in the policy note, you receive a substantive feedback, written feedback on the policy note. And if you wanted to further discuss the feedback or talk to the module tutor in more detail, of course, we are also here to discuss more. And lastly, we have the multiple choice quiz, which tests your knowledge across the module's key concepts. Again, this is pass and fail, so the grade doesn't matter in that sense. It's just pass and fail, but of course you would need to pass a certain threshold to be able to pass the multiple choice quiz. So this is all from us, me and Michael, for today. And let me now hand over to Alex to share his experiences. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. So as I mentioned before, my name's Alex. I'm part of the UK government's trade negotiations. So I'm a student who is about halfway through the inaugural version of this course. So I was sat where you are sat previously, and I'm now in the middle of the diploma, and I'm really excited for the second half. So I was just going to spend a few moments talking about why I signed up for the course, a few reflections on some of the content that you've heard about from Michael and Pinar, and then to hopefully give a bit of a window into what it's like as a student. And I'm really happy to take any questions as part of the Q&A. So to go into that, why I signed up for the course, really a couple of reasons. Firstly, I'm somebody that works in international trade, but I wanted to develop a more rounded and rigorous picture of the international trade system, really. So my work focuses on bilateral free trade agreement negotiations, which is one part of the picture. But what I was really looking for from this course was to understand kind of the foundational role played by the WTO, how regional integration builds on that, how bilateral initiatives build on that, where do free trade agreements fit into the puzzle, and how do domestic policies influence international trade as well. So I wanted to contextualize my work, which is in quite a narrow area, in terms of the wider picture, and really to build a connection between my day-to-day work and that global trading system. That was kind of the big picture reason. I should also say I was interested in building my own skills, knowledge and capability as a trade negotiations official. So this is something which I hoped, and this is certainly bearing out, something which I hoped would help my career progress as I build a specialization in trade negotiations. And it is obviously a very timely moment to be undertaking this sort of commitment. Michael mentioned all of the turbulence which is out there on the international stage, not just Trump, but COVID, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, current events in the Middle East are all massively disrupting international trade, and established norms are being uprooted and rethought. So I thought now was a very timely moment to immerse myself in the history and the plumbing and the future of those trends. And then finally, I was particularly keen to understand international trade from the different interdisciplinary lenses which the course brings. So I'm a government official focused on making trade policy, really. But the opportunity to think about the job from the legal perspective, from the economic perspective, from the perspective of a private business, I would say has really added useful context and richness to that understanding of international trade. So with that kind of set of aspirations in mind, I embarked on the course for the first year, which kicked off last September, and to offer a few reflections on what you can expect. You've of course heard from Michael and Pinar, who are designing and delivering the content, and my reflections above those. I would say I really value the different formats and modes that the course takes. So you have the student-led sessions, which have the benefit of being quite discursive and informal, and just kind of chewing over the reading and the course content which you've got stuck into that week. You have the seminars, who are led by the academics, the faculty team, which are really interactive, really involved. So it's not just a kind of death by PowerPoint situation. It's a real conversation. You have the guest speakers as well, which are really useful. For me as a government official, they're really useful in helping remind me that the key focus and the key users of international trade and trade policy are the businesses who are moving goods and services. And that kind of multi-formatted approach for the course, the real strength, I believe, is drawing out the tensions and the trade-offs which underpin trade policy. So all of these things that we discuss, quite often there's no one right answer. So being able to hear the perspective, the legal perspective, the economic perspective, the business perspective, I think really helps you understand what you're talking about. The course team is really excellent, as I've mentioned, and being part of that Sussex network, as Michael mentioned, probably the biggest in the EU, if not the world, it is an added benefit. To just say a few final words in terms of kind of how it feels and how it is for the participants in the course. Obviously, it is a big commitment. So if you were to do all 4 modules consecutively, that's a kind of 2-year commitment. But it is a real draw that you can approach them on a standalone basis. But, you know, if that's a 9-10 week commitment, I would advise that you should enter that commitment kind of ready and hungry to really throw yourself into it. And I think that is how you would get the most from the course. So it is rigorous. You do spend a good amount of time reading academic texts. You spend some time writing essays. You spend sometimes writing more kind of flexible formatted things like policy notes. But it is a commitment. And the course team are really flexible, but it is something that you have to manage alongside your day job. So I think people should enter this, you know, prepared to be able to put aside the amount of time required to make an investment in the course, and that's ultimately an investment in yourself. So to summarize, if you're looking for a kind of a serious, long-term, substantial investment in your own professional development and your own career, then I would say the course is an excellent option. And I will pause there and hand back to the team.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, so Pinar and Michael. Does anyone have any questions? So covered quite a lot there, but if you have any questions, please do pop them in the chat, the Q&A. Any questions for Pinar, Michael, or for Alex as well about what it's like to be a student on the course? So there is a question that has come in around how the course is delivered. So is the course delivered completely online?
The short answer to that question is yes. So we very much wanted to design a course that was flexible, that people could take in their own time. We recognize, in fact, that is the case, that everybody so far that has taken the course has had a full-time job. So they have their own time commitments, they have their own meetings and schedules and so on. So we didn't want to overly constrain it by it being very scheduled and timetabled. So we wanted to make it very flexible and therefore online. We do offer this 1-hour face-to-face seminar each week, which obviously is a fixed commitment, because we also felt it was important not to simply have online material which you only do in your own time and you never manage to talk to anybody face-to-face and ask a question or to discuss an issue or whatever. So we wanted to give the opportunity to the participants to actually talk to us, and actually I wanted to talk to the participants. I really enjoy those sessions. I really enjoy hearing the sorts of questions, the issues that are raised, and we learn from this as well. So it is very interactive in that sense, very two-way. But most of the material, most of that core material, the learning that you do is using that RISE content which Pinar was demonstrating, which you can do in your own time online.
Thank you, Michael. Let's go to Smita's got a question. So Smita's asked, would we need to complete the 4 modules over 2 years in order to obtain the diploma, or is there any flexibility regarding the time frame?
Okay, I'll go again. I may as well. You can do the diploma over whatever period of time suits you, in principle. So the fastest you could do it, if you were that keen, would be to do it in 1 year, in which case you would take 2 diplomas in each semester. And we have some people that have signed up to do that this way. Other people are just taking a module in each semester. So that will therefore takes 2 years, but you could take longer over it. But yes, you do need to complete all 4 modules in order to get the diploma, although after each module, you will get a certificate of completion of each module.
Thank you, Michael. Smita, hopefully that's answered your question, but do let us know if you have any more. Libby's got a question about part-time. So Libby's part-time and noted that the sessions are recorded, but is unable to avoid the Thursday sessions, for example, and attend Wednesday instead. Sorry, Libby, I think I've got that right. There's a slight typo in the question, Libby, which I'm not quite sure, but do you want to maybe just let us know, Libby, exactly what the question is? But Libby has got a second part, which is a bit easier. When does the course commence?
Let me hand over to you.
Thank you, Michael. So the course starts next September. Module 1 and 3 will be running simultaneously next September. And module 2 and 4 will be running simultaneously next the end of January or beginning of February. So it aligns with Sussex academic calendar.
Perfect. Thank you. I can put a link up to our academic calendar as well in a second in the chat for anyone who's interested. Yeah, so Libby's confirmed that and it's fine, Libby, about the typo, don't worry. So Libby's basically said if they couldn't make the Thursday, would they be able to attend Wednesday instead, for example? I mean, is there flexibility in that, or would they just access the recorded content?
Pinar, do you want to go?
Okay, yes. So maybe I should have been more clear about this. So we have 2 modules running simultaneously. So let's say for Wednesdays, Wednesday seminars would be for module 1, let's say, and Thursday seminars would be for module 3. So they are not replaceable in that sense. So in that case, the answer would be no. But if they sign up for the 2 modules, and if they can't make Wednesday, of course they can join Thursday seminars. But if they are just they just attend participate in module 1, and if they are asking if they could just they can't attend Wednesday and instead attend Thursdays, they won't be the same seminars. So the answer would be no in that case.
Thank you, Pinar. Okay, question here. So is it better to have a diploma or a master's degree? And what's the advantage of a diploma over a master's?
That's a good question. I think it all depends, rather than thinking about the title, the label, as it were, I think what matters is what you are interested in. So if you are interested in an interdisciplinary course on international trade, then this is, I would argue, very suitable for you. If you're interested in doing a master's in economics or in international trade law, then you might want to do a master's. So they're slightly different beasts, and it just depends on what your motivation is, what you're trying to achieve out of the course. I mean, I don't know if, Alex, you have any reflections on this, because you must have been looking around a little bit about what the options might be for you.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Yes, I did, and actually a master's was one of the options I did consider. I would agree with you, Michael. I think it just depends on people's circumstances. And speaking for myself, what drew me to this opportunity as opposed to a master's? Well, a few things. Number one, the fact that it was really specifically tailored into international trade policy. While there are, I think, some masters out there that do that, they are quite often they're wider and broader, whereas this was quite a tailored, bespoke opportunity which aligned with exactly what I wanted to do. Secondly, the flexibility of undertaking it alongside a full-time job. I didn't want to leave work or pause work to start studying while you can do something like a part-time master's. I think it would be quite difficult to do a part-time master's and working part-time. Whereas the flexible way that this this format is delivered. It makes it as easy as it can be to do alongside a full-time job.
If I can just add to that, when we were thinking of setting up this course, I did a fair bit of sort of research trying to see if there was anything out there that was along the lines of what we were thinking of doing. And I was quite surprised and astonished to find that really is very, very little out there. I'd like to think that what we offer in this course is fairly unique. And if that uniqueness, if the content is what interests you, then I don't think it matters whether or not it is formally a master's. It's pitched at the graduate level, so we would expect all the participants to have a minimum of an undergraduate degree.
Can I come in on that? Maybe, Michael, we could also add that we are only looking for a undergraduate degree, but we are not necessarily looking for any economists or lawyers, although this is interdisciplinary. So you can have a entirely different background, but maybe you're interested in international trade policy and you want to learn more about it, or you want to learn about it. So this diploma would also suit you. So we're without an economics or law background, you would be able to attend and complete the diploma.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Any more questions? We've got a few more minutes we can be here for, so do type them in the chat, the Q&A. I said at the beginning that I'd put my email address in for any general questions around the University of Sussex, so I've just put that in the webinar chat. And if you don't receive the recording for any reason, you can always send me an email and I can send it to you manually as well.
I have also put into the chat my email address. So sometimes one comes off these calls and thinks, oh, I wish I'd asked this, or I wish I'd asked that. Feel free to email us either on our general inquiry email address or to me personally, and we will respond to your email.
I've also put my email address.
I'm just going to put those in again because they've just gone to hosts and panelists, but I've popped them in there as well.
All right.
That's all right. I've got them here. It's a question for you, Alex, there from Liban. Did your department fund the diploma?
Very, very fortunately, yes, it did. So I suppose different employers and different organisations will approach in a different way. But well, actually, to be honest, going back to the masters versus this diploma question, if you are somebody who's going to be looking for your employer to pay for it, to be perfectly honest, the fact that it's a bit more of a shorter, smaller course does mean it's more affordable. So for anybody who's going to be asking their boss if they can pay, then that is a selling point, to be perfectly honest. But not that I'm saying that's the main value proposition.
Thank you, Alex. Any more questions for our panel? I know it can take a little while if people are typing, so we'll just hang on for a few more minutes. While we're just waiting for any kind of last questions, does anyone on the panel, is there anything anyone wants to add or didn't mention? I think I was going to mention as well, when you talked about one of the questions earlier around online, fully online, I thought I'd mention that anyone on this course does get a Sussex ID, and you do have access to the library or the online library at the university, so you can access our resources that way as well. I meant to pop that in earlier, but is anyone on the panel anything they would like to add?
The only thing I would add is just this goes back to the sort of qualifications issue. The course is CPD accredited, so you do get CPD points for undertaking the course, which is important for some employers.
Perhaps just to also cover one thing which I should have mentioned on reflection in my remarks, and to just discuss the real benefit and the quality of the co-participants that I've been studying alongside, I think is a really, really important benefit. So you have kind of government officials from UK government on my part, and the devolved governments in the UK, but also from around the world. We have kind of private sector business leaders, people from trade associations, some people involved in the international organisations and academic space as well. So, having been able to build that network and expose myself to different perspectives and make those connections has been really beneficial, and has indeed sparked some conversations and projects not related to the course, kind of relating to our intersecting work interests. So it's another thing to look forward to as part of the course.
Thank you. Libby's got a good question actually around the application selection process for candidates. Is everyone accepted, or is it necessary to have a specific degree and qualifications?
So there is no specific degree, and I think Pinar mentioned this earlier. It's not as if we expect people to have a degree in economics or in law or whatever. So in practice, most people are accepted, and most people that have applied have been. We just want to make sure that people have the right background and are suitable for the course. If somebody had just finished high school, for example, or secondary school and was applying, we would probably say, sorry, you haven't got the necessary background. But so generally, we're not very restrictive on the applicants. I noticed there's also a question online about are there any fee waivers available? Sadly not. I wish there were. I'm still trying to find a donor who might be prepared to fund a scholarship or scholarships for this diploma. We are in the fairly early years of running the diploma, as Alex said, and we said. We launched it last September and we're very excited by it, but at the moment we currently don't have the financial resources to offer fee waivers. I would love to do so in the future. So if you have any rich backers, do let me know.
Thank you, Michael. There are no more questions at the moment. Just normally when I say that, a question pops up, so we'll just hang on for a little while. But just to reiterate, you'll get the recording tomorrow, so feel free to watch it back and do contact any of us afterwards if you have any more questions.
And if I can just say thank you very much again for coming on for this webinar. I hope you found it informative and interesting. And if you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to follow up with us. And hopefully we will see you in September, all of you.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. Here we go. Another question. If we've got time for one more, always pops up. So anonymous attendees asked if they get the diploma and would like to take the course at Sussex Uni, is it easier to get accepted? If you'd like to take a course, a different course afterwards. It's an interesting question. I guess it would depend upon the course you're interested in afterwards and what the entry requirements are there.
Yeah. In a sense, you've answered that question. It really does depend on what is the other course that you might be applying for at Sussex.
Perfect. Well, I think we'll end it there. As Michael said, do get in touch, and it would be lovely if some of you do join the course and catch up with Pinar and Michael next year in September. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Pinar, Michael, and Alex. And thanks, everyone, for attending and for your questions. Look out for the recording. Get in touch with any more questions. And take care, everyone.
Great. Thank you very much, Ben, and everybody.
Take care.
Thank you very much, Ben, and everybody.
Bye.
Bye.